Hi, my name is Mike Gibb. I run accountsrecovery.net, and I'm excited to bring you today's webinar on something that is admittedly not an incredibly sexy topic, but it is one that dramatically impacts the bottom line of every collection agency: how and when to select a new software provider. There are more software applications available to collection agencies than ever before, and each solution has its own bells and whistles. Comparing, contrasting, and evaluating those offerings to determine which is the best fit can be a cumbersome and disorganized process. I'm looking forward to hearing what our panel of ARM industry experts has to say on this important topic. This webinar is being generously sponsored by InterProz. You'll get the chance to hear more about them a little later in our program. I want to take a quick minute and say a few words about accountsrecovery.net. Accountsrecovery.net is a news and information platform for the ARM industry. The site publishes unique and curated content, maintains a number of email newsletters, hosts webinars like this one, and offers a number of exciting podcasts for the ARM industry. The site is free for anyone in the industry to use, and it's a great resource of news and insights to help educate and inform, my mother tells me. I hope you'll all spend a few minutes every day checking out what it has to offer. Let me tell you a little bit about today's speakers. Jonathan Harbin is the Chief Information Officer at Frost Arnett. Jonathan and his team are responsible for managing the ever-increasing amount of data flowing through the company. Before joining Frost Arnett, he worked in technology-related fields at Nashville-based healthcare companies for more than 10 years. Jonathan earned a bachelor's degree in information technology from Middle Tennessee State University and is a certified information systems security professional. Ed Sala is the owner of Acer Capital Recovery, a collection agency that specializes in medical and healthcare accounts. Ed has been an active member of the collections industry for nearly 2 decades, having worked his way up to owning his own collection agency. He has played an active role within ACA International and is a very respected member of the ARM industry. Born and raised in the Pacific Northwest, Ryan Wiswall grew up hearing about the debt collection business through his father and his grandfather. Nevertheless, he joined the Air Force at 18 and pursued a career in pararescue. But a few years later, he had an unfortunate parachute accident that changed the course of his professional career in the military. At the time, what seemed like a significant blow turned into a blessing when he started to work for the family business while attending school. Today, Ryan is the Vice President of Columbia Collectors, a company that was first started by his grandfather in 1957. Now he is the 3rd generation to lead the business and continue the family legacy. With many passions that are both analytical and creative, Ryan brings a unique approach to the business. He sees the industry as an opportunity to help businesses and individuals by simplifying the process of collection and leveraging communication through technology. His passion for youth education led him to start an internship program in partnership with the Cascadia Tech Academy. 4 years later, he runs 2 internship programs for both IT and legal departments and sits on the board of advisors for the school. The format for today's webinar will be a discussion moderated by myself. We encourage everybody to submit questions, and we'll get to them when the discussion has concluded. To submit a question, please type it into the question tab on your Zoom webinar control panel. This event is an audio-only event, so if you're not seeing anything on your screens, you're not missing anything. A recording of this event is being recorded, and a recording of this event will be made available in the coming days on accountsrecovery.net. There. Now that all that is out of the way, let's launch our discussion. So, the first thing I want to ask is something, sort of a high-level question, and we'll start to burrow down from there. What are some of the reasons why a collection agency should consider switching either a service provider or a software system? And Ryan will give you the honor of answering first.
Sure, I appreciate that, and thank you for introducing me. So one of the reasons why we have looked at and considered another service provider software system is because of the dynamic changes that are happening with softwares in general. As you see, Microsoft and other service providers and technology companies have been advancing a lot of solutions out there for different programming, and naturally our agency and us look to the collection software realm to fit those needs and collaborate with those newer softwares. As many of you know, we have some limitations when it comes to legal requirements and what we can and cannot do, but nevertheless, we still want those options to be able to integrate. So when we're on some older platforms or other software companies, we look to have certain things like integrated text, VoIP phone system integration for unified communications, where call recording would be directly attached to a screen, things from end user capabilities for the collectors, from analytics, letting them know how many calls they may have up in the corner, to management style analytics as well. So all these things really get into what gives us the capability to be a better collection agency and what are we looking for in the future. So.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate the start. Ed, Jonathan, anything else you want to add to some of the reasons why a collection agency might consider switching a service provider or a software system?
No, I agree with Ryan. I think a lot of it comes down to compliance and what the system can do to help automate your processes. Anything that can help us be more efficient is going to help the business overall. So, and a lot of that are compliance requirements of the system that can provide, help you meet those compliance requirements in an automated way is going to pay for itself.
Yeah, I know many of you attending look at your softwares out there, and all of us have our things that we've either become accustomed to or have manipulated our softwares to do. Some of those on older systems, if you're familiar with technology, multi-value databases, which was a big proponent of the financial industry back in the 80s, have been built upon, and they have a lot of great details, but really it doesn't integrate with a lot of larger software companies nowadays. We're finding a lot of fixes, a lot of duct tape solutions, and it's getting to the point where things are advancing so quick that that's not really good enough, at least for us. So we always look for solutions that are going to be easily integrated and dynamic, and some of the things that I have on my wish list as far as moving company forward are either heavy investment forms or are really incapable of servicing us as a small or medium-sized business. So, and I would assume that you guys are on the same page, right, Ed?
Did we lose Ed? Maybe we lost Ed.
Jonathan, are you
That's
there?
why I was on mute. First and foremost, Ryan, I want to say thank you for your service. Everybody a part of this, appreciates everything that you've done and putting your life out on the line and everything else. So thank you. I agree with everything both gentlemen said. I think with in regards to switching or looking at a new service provider, is that new service provider forward thinking? Are they able to think out of the box and take a different look at the collection software and the platform to allow us to go into into the future? Because a lot of these databases now are just, they're not prepared for that. And to bite off what was said, they're antiquated. You can only, with the value system, you're putting in the information, but you're not getting information out of it. Correct.
And that's one of those old adages, data in versus data out. And as we look at our software, like I said in the bio, I run a internship program, and a lot of these students that are coming from, I may have 3 interns in a year, where they're seeing a lot of their training is in languages like Python. The only way to connect to our premise-based software we have right now is through ODBC, Microsoft's connectivity tool. Really, that's okay for servicing small little parts to make things work, but it's not something when they get into the programming aspect. In this case, ours is PIC, the PIC language. They look at me and they're confused. So I look at this and I said, is this really foolproof? Is this future-proof? And the quick answer is no. And we need to find a cloud-based software that is dynamic enough and adaptable enough and future-proofing themselves. And, I've seen a few solutions out there as well, like InterProz being one of them. So.
Yeah, and to add on a little bit, one of the questions and comments came up a second ago where someone said it's old and costly to work with. And we've definitely seen that as the case too. We are now on a tool that is a lot of things Ryan mentioned, able to work in the cloud and using more modern programming languages, but it's also extremely expensive. And I know we'll probably get to talk about that more throughout the webinar, but We moved to a new system. It took 4 years to convert. So I think a lot of people underestimate how hard it is to convert this data into new systems, recreate all the processes that you've created over the years, and don't miss a beat. I think we'll get into that more. Definitely to the comment, it's right. It's old and costly to work with, but your option is to move on to a more modern platform, and it's going to be costly as well. But at least you will be on something that's going to be updated and able to find more developers for, like Ryan mentioned.
Yeah, I agree. I think, to answer the original question as far as looking for why look for another software or service provider, and it's a simple thing. It's adaptability. Is it something that we can continue on for the next 10, 20 plus years? And good indicators for that is it compatible or integratable with other software systems out in the technology world? So, the laws are going to change at the pace that they change, but inevitably we need to have a service provider that recognizes the need for those integrations and provides those and lets the companies dictate what laws they're going to follow and how they're going to follow suit.
Excellent. Well, that's a great start. At this point, what I want to do is just pause the discussion for a moment and invite Aaron Ryder from InterProz to say a few words. Aaron?
Thanks, Mike. And thank you again to all of our panels today, Ryan, Jonathan, and Ed. Appreciate you guys devoting some time to this today.
Absolutely.
InterProz, we were pretty excited to sponsor this webinar topic because it's near and dear to our hearts. Every day we interact with professionals who are considering a very significant decision of choosing a collection software. So as our panels are discussing, the way consumers and employees interact with technology has changed. Communication norms have evolved, and navigating the various options in the market to select the best fit for a company's use case is challenging. It comes down to asking the right questions, knowing which boxes to tick, and understanding the terminology that we as software providers tend to sprinkle into conversations as though everyone knows what we're talking about. At InterProz, we consider ourselves a service company first that happens to make world-class software platforms for debt recovery. Our relationships with our customers are partnerships because, look, it sounds cliched, but our success is directly tied to the success of our clients that build their businesses upon our software, which is called ACE. We take it very seriously. So to help our customers stay competitive, we leverage Amazon's AWS infrastructure. It helps us lead the industry in inherited security and compliance, as well as processing speed. It saves our customers time and money by eliminating on-premises hardware and infrastructure audits or penetration testing. And through our browser-based interface, monthly updates and upgrades to the platform are included, which keep us at the forefront of the technology and the third-party technologies that we can integrate. So InterProz is devoted to supporting the debt recovery market. It's all we do. We're really great at it. And if anyone on the call is looking to modernize, to leverage new technologies as they arise, or looking for better relationships with your software provider to feel supported, InterProz is here for you. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Aaron, and thanks again to InterProz for sponsoring today's event. We're just getting started. We still got a ways to go in our discussion. But one of the things that I really haven't heard yet, and I want to bring it up now, is any mention of sort of cost. And, we're talking about efficiency, automation, integration, all of these things, but no one's really sort of mentioned how much the system costs. So I'm curious, is that, where on the list of importance does that sort of fit in terms of the criteria when selecting a new software? And maybe, Ed, you can tackle this first one this time.
Cost is a big part of it. Some software companies charge a flat fee. Some charge a flat fee to start up plus user costs, and then have other add-on benefits and features that have ongoing legacy costs to that. But I think for the most part, it's what are you comfortable spending? What are your budgets? Are you getting the bang for your buck? Is service available immediately? If you have a question, can you text somebody or, jump into a chat room or give them a phone call? Are they readily available? So for me, that's what it is.
Yeah, and I mean, I think price is, one of the top two, price and service/adaptability. A lot of times I know when people are evaluating these systems, things that get lumped into that price later that you didn't expect are, well, I thought this was going to be covered by support, and no, the vendor has deemed that it's custom development or something else that's not covered by support, and that adds up extremely quickly. Custom features, adaptability. I think it's very important to have that conversation with the vendors up front as to what exactly is included, and coming up with some scenarios and asking, would this be support or is this custom development? Otherwise, you can be in for a nasty surprise.
Yeah, I believe that, with any market out there, it's a dynamic thing. So cost and service are going to go hand in hand with what the market out there is able to deliver. So some of the older platforms are on an older model, and their capabilities are overshadowed by these newer products. And then if you throw service or price into that, sometimes they're able to sell at a better platform. I know from our experience looking at simple things like transmitting letters, right? So we all have to send out letters, some more than others. Some are trying to push more technology-based platforms, where others are going and still kicking out tons of first notices and statement letters and physical letters. When we're transmitting letters out, I would expect that to be as part of the bundled service nowadays. It's not something that is, in my opinion, something that's very hard to do. Back in the day when we had to run, like a 56K modem, dial up and send out, we actually were doing that for free. Now they're adding in all these little services. And from what we've seen, we're being charged from one of our vendors about $160 to $170 a month just to transmit monthly our letters out, where they're still making money for that. I look at that as something, especially if it fails, something that's a hindrance. It's, if you look at Salesforce Online, for instance, their one user platform to run their whole CRM program that has tons of tools integrated is less than $160 a month. So part of it, I think, is our market trying to figure out where that new price break is going to be with cloud-based platforms. I'm really looking forward to a lot of changes in probably the next 5 years to see where collection agency software is going to go. But I start looking at little nuances like that and saying, okay, are they trying to fit a older style mentality with software into a new platform or new world? So that's just one example that I've seen. Have you guys seen anything else as far as costs that you look at and go, why am I having to pay for this, or what would I expect?
Well, I'm trying to think if I see any costs involved with that. Our software provider is pretty good.
So they've been able to provide a turnkey service, right?
They get it's pretty much a turnkey service. So
yeah.
Except for if you're going to integrate, say a merchant account or payment processing account or something like that, they may charge X amount for that. But for the most part, they're pretty good. Although the hourly fee for a special project that we may have coming up, or a client that wants something done a specific way, that can get very, very costly.
Yeah, I think one big thing that factors in, and different companies obviously address this in different ways, is what can that software handle, and what's going to be out of that scope that they're going to have to bring in another additional service provider, whether they're creating a marketplace where they're extending out to litter service vendors, skip tracers, so on and so forth. More and more, the software capabilities are being able to handle a lot more. Like some older companies had to add on imaging services, right? So that was an additional cost to a lot of agencies. Nowadays, that's something that is pretty simple storage-wise. It should just be adapted and part of it. So the older platforms are charging you a premium or charging you extra, whereas the newer softwares that are starting to find easier ways to integrate, like, look, this is a way we can, one, make money and just integrate it into a full service product. More and more, I know I'm starting to expect that from the software. So, it should just be naturally attached. It should be easy to recall data and images. Reporting aspects should be live and, again, dynamic. I should be able to call out a report and see, what last year was compared to this year. So, and all those things factor into cost when we're measuring that against each platform.
Yeah, and I think another thing too, one that definitely surprised us, moving from our old system to the new, is the total cost of ownership, including those services, including what's included in support versus custom development. And then another aspect that really surprised us was the personnel requirements that went up with the newer software. The newer software enabled us to have 1,000 more capabilities than we had before, but we now had to hire a DBA to manage the database. We now needed more system analysts to be able to, and higher end technology employees. Before we were able to have collection managers that could do a lot of the work, and a lot of that with these more advanced systems is shifting towards requiring higher level IT people, which drives the expense up quite a bit as well.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I've been seeing that as well. And that kind of goes back full circle to what language and what platform is it built on. So, some of those older premise-based software, they're built on languages that your guy that you hire may cost you $250 to $300 an hour, where some of these newer languages, you're talking maybe $100 or less. And obviously that doesn't even get into the compliance aspect of how do they write code and how do they protect against certain requirements such as HIPAA. So
yeah.
So Jonathan, how do you account for that? Having that you're going to. At what point do you sort of realize that you're going to need to hire a database administrator or systems analyst, or sort of you're actually going you're going to have to incur these additional expenses beyond what you were expecting because the new technology is so much more complex than what you've been using?
Yeah, that's something we definitely did not do well. It was a surprise to us. I'm not sure the best way. The one thing that, looking back, I would say to look at is, for instance, our old system, may have had a couple hundred data points as far as, notes and account numbers and balances and all the basics. When we moved to the new system, it's now tracking thousands to tens of thousands of data points. And I know one analysis I did, an account in our old system compared to an account in our new system, the new system takes up 179 times more disk space because of all of the new data points that it's covering. Now, it's a good thing. It's helping us out with PCI, HIPAA, reporting to our clients. It's given us a lot of new capabilities, but it's also vastly increased the technical complexity. So I would say to make sure and look at that. If you're going from a couple hundred data points to tens of thousands of data points, you're going to need someone who can manage that, very, very large database, and the system analysts around that.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think that's kind of where the market is trending. Is disk space is so cheap nowadays compared to when it was back in, say, 2000. 10 gigabytes was premium; it would cost us. Versus nowadays, I actually heard that Apple, with their phone system, they're going to be launching integrated cloud, so people aren't going to be having to back up. I think this is going to be a trending pattern with a lot of companies because the disk space is so cheap that they're just going to be hosting everything online. So what that means is you're going to have all this data and information sitting on the cloud. There's, obviously companies like Amazon are meeting the compliance requirements, but that means for individual companies like ourselves, we're going to have to figure out how to aggregate that data, how to analyze that data. And that's going to require people who are trained in noticing patterns and trends. And then for each agency, making sure they have good policies on how do we input that data, making sure we have good data in and good data out, because that's really where most companies are going to be able to leverage. And I see these collection software companies helping aid that by creating platforms that can either analyze it better, feed out data and show us what we need to see, or give us proper tools to manipulate that data. So